to you today from the Southern Legend Outdoors Studio, the Be a Legend podcast. Brought to you from SouthernLegendOutdoors.com. And now your hosts, Kevin Bearfield and Kerry Nelson. Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. It's your time now. Be a legend.
Welcome to another episode of the Be a Legend podcast, brought to you from Southern Legend Outdoors. During this episode, Kerry is in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, visiting with Brother Chad Clanton, pastor of Gum Springs Baptist Church, and Ray Cobb, a fallow deer and pheasant farmer there in Lawrenceburg. Kerry will be discussing a variety of topics pertaining to the outdoors and, more importantly, the ministry involved in the work there at Gum Springs. We hope you enjoy this special episode of the Be a Legend podcast.
Well, good morning. We're coming from Tennessee this morning, road trip. Southern Legend Outdoors. We are here with two of our dearest friends, Brother Chad Clanton, Brother Ray Cobb. These men have become some close friends of ours, and not just because we're servants of the Lord together. Brother Chad pastors Gum Springs Baptist Church here outside of Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, and Brother Ray's a deacon here, and we do enjoy going to church together and serving the Lord together. But as Southern Legend Outdoors has brought us together with lots of people, we find that the outdoors brings us together as well. And these two guys love the outdoors and love giving back, being a part of By His Grace Outdoors. We love to give back to kids and different folks, and these men here are no different. They do that here in Tennessee. Matter of fact, they've got a youth hunt planned in just a few weeks with a boys' home not far from here. And so they are actively involved in giving back to the community. And boy, it's just good to be here with these men this morning. Kerry Nelson, on the road, Southern Legend Outdoors here in Tennessee. Well, Brother Chad, I want to talk to you to start with, kind of get this going. I would like to say to our listeners that we are doing this via telephone recording. Now, we're all here in the same room together, but we're having to do it on our phone. I walked out and forgot my equipment, so we're going to do this off cell phone, so the quality will be just a little bit different. Brother Chad, it's good to have you this morning, and I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about how long you've been here at Gum Springs Baptist Church, and just a little bit about yourself to get us started this morning.
Brother Kerry, I've been here going on 15 years this year. God has blessed us with a great congregation of people. When we started the church here back in 2003, running about 30 or 40 people, church was in kind of a bad spiritual state, and God just impressed upon me to come to this church. Most men wouldn't have took this church, and God began to bless, save souls, and we just paid off a $1.4 million facility.
Amen.
And boy, God's just been good to us, looking to build again, and just through relationships like Brother Kerry, stay encouraged in the Lord, and just good fellowship. And God's been good to us. Got one of the best churches any pastor would ever want to pastor.
Yes.
Got great men that love the Lord and love the outdoors, and we have game suppers and go hunting with kids, and it's just an amazing thing what God's done here at this church.
Well, amen. I've been able to be a part of the official game suppers, the non-official game suppers, the outside game suppers, where we just get together at somebody's house and cook. We've been able to we've ate a lot of wild game with Gum Springs Baptist Church men and ladies, and boy, what a joy. I would have to say that one of my favorite memories that we've made with Brother Chad and Brother Ray and the Gum Springs bunch up here. One of the first times I came up here, we went up. What is the name of the town where the soda pop is? What's the name of that? Linville, Tennessee. And so a lot of these guys here have Jeeps, and so we got in a Jeep, and I happened to get in with Brother Chad, and we were riding. It was my first time here. It was in the spring, and so we're headed up to a little burger place in Linville, Tennessee, and we of course, all of us being big turkey hunters, and it was turkey season. And I looked out there, and there's turkey on the left side and turkey on the right side of the road in the pastures. And we went on up and ate. And it was about an hour or so. We were on the way back where there was a hen that had gotten run over. I mean, right in the middle of the road. And so I just jumped out and told Bro Chad, I said, "Stop, man, from Mississippi. We eat roadkill around our place." And so we stopped, jumped out, retrieved the turkey that somebody had run over, and you guessed it, the next day it was on the grill and it was lunch. And so that's kind of how mine and Brother Chad's relationship started. He probably thought this is a crazy fella, but anyway, you can wrap roadkill in bacon and make it good. So but anyway, we have a great time when we come. And Brother Ray, I'm going to let you say some things. Now, these guys have been friends before they served the Lord together. They grew up around each other and been lifelong friends. And now Brother Ray serves this church as a deacon and leader in this church. And boy, Brother Chad, he was correct when he said what a great church to be around. And their outreach, their men ministries, their women ministries, their outreach to their own community worldwide with missions. They have a group of men that are actively involved in ministry of building churches and facilities for the needy, and they do that the first week of June. That's Carpenters for Christ, and they go each June and do that. And so just a heart for ministry and a heart for people. But I'm gonna have Ray say some things about himself. And then I want to talk about the joint efforts that they have in raising some wildlife as well. So, Ray Cobb, welcome to Southern Legend Outdoors.
Yeah, Brother Kerry, you spoke of a little earlier. I actually went to grade school with Brother Chad. Grew up all our lives hunting and fishing together. And it would be a long story to tell you, but God put me here about 5 years ago, and it's been, I kind of got mad at God when He separated us, because Brother Chad had got called to preach and went to another church 30 miles and took him away from me time wise. We was fishing 3 days a week and hunting other days, it kind of, I didn't understand it, but now I do. God's got the perfect plan.
Yes.
6-7 years later, now we're together every day. God's blessed us to the point that, we're together, we work together, we visit together, it's kind of a joke. My wife says, "That's Chad. You ain't called him today. He's missing you." But it's just been a blessing from God. God was growing Chad and growing me at two different churches and put us back together here at Gum Springs. But and we want to give God the glory for that.
Amen.
But it's just we don't understand a lot of times what He's got going on, but He knows.
Right.
He knows exactly what He's doing, and it's been a pleasure to be here, to be able to serve with Him, and like you said, God, we were talking there last night, Brother Brandon, about the divine intervention. God puts you together with people that you'd have never known any other way.
Yes.
But it's just been a blessing to be where we're at with God and the friends that we have developed through hunting, fishing, and serving the Lord together.
Right.
You know.
Well, and me and Brother Chad just, at a Bible conference in Mississippi, just ended up at the same table, and somebody introduced us, and the rest is history. And we feel like we've known each other for years, and that's something that happens in the ministry. But it's Southern Legend Outdoors. We talk a lot about hunting and talk a lot about the outdoors, and there's been a lot of lifelong friends made through a squirrel hunt or a deer hunt or a turkey hunt. And just this past spring, we were able to go to Oklahoma with Ray and his father and his uncles, and just got done eating breakfast with his father and the two uncles that went on the hunt. We've been and just seeing them, never knowing them, never meeting them, all of a sudden it seems like you've known them forever. Just 1 week in Oklahoma could do that. And that's just the way the Lord does. He puts people together. And, His timing, Bro Chad, is something that's amazing because He knows when to put us together at the right time, when we can complement one another and ultimately bring honor and glory to Him. Well, I do want to talk about the state of Tennessee. Now, I'm not familiar with the state of Tennessee and hunting. I know is it bow season right now? Yes. Bow season right now. Y'all's muzzleload season is the first season that opens as far as gun. Yep. Is that right? Yep. Early November?
First weekend of November.
First weekend of November. And so I know y'all are anxious. A lot of good deer in this area. A matter of fact, early this morning, before daylight, there was a bunch of them on the side of the road as I was coming to meet these guys for breakfast. But a lot of good deer killed in this area. Lots of deer up in this area. I see a lot on the side of the road as we come up the Natchez Trace from Tupelo to get here. A lot of times we see a whole lot of deer on the side of the road. But I know just by being around this area that a lot of the people here love to hunt, love the outdoors, and we love getting around other hunters because, when you got hunting, you got stories. And you've got stories to tell, and you've got memories that's been made. And I got tickled just listening to y'all about all the Oklahoma trips and going out to Mexico, New Mexico hunting, turkey hunting with your uncles. And you can't ever overemphasize making memories, and especially with those that you love. And so deer season's in full swing. Your uncle was talking about being in a blind yesterday. And so bow season is here. Mississippi as well. We've started bow season, and several good deer's been killed. Well, I want to talk to Brother Chad and Brother Ray about an adventure that they began several years back. And they have I don't know exactly the title you would give somebody that raises fallow deer, but I'll let them decide on what title they want as far as that goes. But interesting thing is these men raise fallow deer and raise pheasant, and they just had a pheasant hunt this past weekend. Turned loose 400 and retrieved a great number of them. They'll do just a walk-through hunt and then turn the dogs out, is the way I understand. And so I want them to tell, Brother Chad, tell us a little bit about that hunt. And then I'm going to have Ray come in and tell us about raising the pheasants. And we'll start with the pheasant. But tell us about this past hunt. Y'all do this annually.
Yes.
And tell us about that.
Our first hunt is always the 1st of October. It is a military hunt where we honor our veterans and even those that do serve, whether it be in the emergency services or the military. Again, we had, I think, 25 or 26 hunters this year, and turned loose, flushed 400 birds at the Royal Flush Hunting Preserve, Rick and Randy Chambers. They started coming to church with us some years back, and we just kind of got interested in the pheasant, and they allowed us to have a church shoot where we had a little trouble finding pheasants. So Brother Ray said, well, we can handle that. We'll just raise them. So we started raising them probably 3 or 4 years ago, and we raise about 12 to 1,500 a year. and we've just turned it into fellowship. They allow us to use the hunting preserve. We take those birds that we kill as a group of Christian men and use those during the wild game supper. Pheasant are very popular at our game supper.
Yes.
And so it's just it gives us another tool to get together, and our men love to fellowship, and we'll have that church shoot every year and just have a great time in the Lord. Circle up and pray before the hunt, and just Christian fellowship. There's nothing like it. Hunting and worshiping together and praising the Lord. It's just I can't think of anything better.
Well, I know that for the veterans and for the men that are in different fields of service, I know that is a joy to them. It's a joy to you men to be a part of it. The Bible still says in the book of Acts, it's more blessed to give than to receive. There's a whole lot of work goes into raising these pheasants. There's a day in and day out operation with that, and I have watched it. Just yesterday, I watched Brother Matthew help Brother Ray feed the fallow deer and feed the pheasants and make sure they got water and make sure they're not hung up in the netting and the fencing, and they just from bringing them in and raising them up to the point that you could turn them out to a shoot. Ray, I want you to explain to us, tell us the process, what y'all go through to get a pheasant ready to go to a hunt.
Brother Kerry, as Brother Chad done iterated, it was a door that God opened for us to Brother Rick and Randy Chambers, a set of twins that owns a shooting preserve, and they've shot pheasants up there for 20 years. And they started coming to church here and joined the church, and they offered to let us have a church shoot, just kind of as a fellowship type get together. Well, we struggled to find 150 pheasants that year because demand was greater than supply. And we were over there and had actually went on a cleanup hunt after a continental shoot, and we were talking about it and asking questions, which we had the facility to raise birds. Well, we'd raised chickens for years. And I told Chad, I said, listen, I can take care of this not having any birds. So I think the first year he and I, just kind of as a fellowship type deal, we got 500 birds, day-old chicks, and brought them in, put them in the brooder house there, and raise them up. And you're talking about at first it's a 3 times a day, making sure waters is full, and for the first 10 days it's pretty stressful.
Right.
And then once you get them up, 4 or 5 weeks old, then you can turn them out in what we call the fly pen. That's what it is, conditioning pen, 200 feet long, 50 feet wide. It's about every 3rd day. Then you have to fill up big feeders and water and stuff. But it's like you'd iterated before. It's a lot of work to it. People don't realize what it takes to get a bird from day old to 20 weeks old.
Wow.
Where he's old enough to fly good, But we went from just having the church shoot where we could use these pheasants at the wild game supper, and a bunch of the men at church that love to hunt just get together and have a big time. It evolved into Chad and I are now raising every bird that they shoot on the Royal Flush shooting preserve. It kind of, it's just doors that God's opened. Rick and Randy were traveling plumb down into Georgia and getting birds and bringing them back, which it stresses them and this and that. Now, we can catch birds, and in 3 miles they're over there ready, fresh birds ready to hunt. But it's kind of evolved into a business aspect because they have paid hunts. The people come in, groups will come in and we'll supply the birds for them. But and it's just been it's kind of been a ministry. We have seen the Chambers brothers grow closer to God, and what I see from the first hunt we ever went to, when they conduct these hunts is a totally different atmosphere now. It went from just a bunch of good old boys having a pheasant shoot to now they incorporate God into the hunt.
Right.
You know, so it's just it's God opening doors and applying Himself into our lives. But
tell me about the. I know that y'all have to. You bring them in and they're day old chicks, and you put them in the brooder. And how long do they stay in the brooder?
They'll run in the brooder 5 to 6 weeks, and then you have to put peepers in them, which is kind of like a pair of blinders to keep them from killing one another. Because when you put them in close proximity like that, they're real cannibalistic. Out in the wild, they can get away from one another, but about 5 weeks, we'll put the peepers in and put them right back into the same brooders. Let them get used to the peepers in the brooder in a familiar surrounding. If you just put the peeper in and put them into the fly pen into a different place, it's too much stress. The peeper and you're putting a blinder on them and then putting them into a strange facility. And then you have to go back, re-catch them. Now we're talking, 600-700 birds at a time.
All right, let me ask you this. So when you say catch them, it's one-on-one. It's bird. You have to take a
Dip net.
Yeah, and you have to put that peeper in one at a time.
That's right.
And that's something that, by the time, I guess my thing is by the time a veteran or a pastor, whoever it is that comes to hunt, I know that Rick and Randy have paid hunts, but a lot of the times y'all just sponsor hunts. And by the time a person kills a pheasant on that game preserve, that's got to be gratifying to you and Brother Chad to know that person just sees that bird fall from a good shot and then cleaned, dropped in some grease. I'm getting hungry already, and fried, deep fried and eaten. But you and Brother Chad can stand back, and because you are ministering, and you know as well as I do, y'all ain't getting rich off pheasants. You may even go in the hole a lot of times. And you're doing it you said a while ago, 3 times a day, checking when they're younger and all of that. So what about the gratification? Brother Chad, tell us about the gratification when you leave a hunt like that and you know what you and Ray and those that assist y'all have done to put a smile. I know by His Grace Outdoors, when you guys come to me and y'all can just be yourself, and you can just enjoy yourself. When you pull away, there's a gratifying process of that just surpasses anything I've ever done, because I know that I've been able to give you some time to refresh you to get back to doing what you're supposed to be doing. What about that with your pheasant hunts?
It's the same feeling, Brother Kerry, especially when, you raise these birds, you give them that attention for 22 weeks, and then you see a father and a son standing together and shoot a pheasant and see the feelings upon their face, that joy that a father and son can have. Maybe the first wild species this young boy's ever killed.
Right.
We do have a lot of father-son that shoot, and even husband-wife. We have a Valentine's shoot. So just to know you're part of a couple being able to enjoy the outdoors is very gratifying, and it's what keeps us motivated. And it's just rewarding to do that, and then to know that bird will end up on someone's table. There's no greater feeling of eating wild game, but seeing other people enjoy that. Just like a grandmother would like to cook for their children, how that grandmother loves to see those kids eat. That's the same feeling we get from raising these birds and doing that. So it's been an awesome experience for us.
Well, and if you haven't ever eaten pheasant, then you've missed it. And it's a must at the Gum Springs Baptist Church Wild Game Supper. And before we move to our next subject, have you set your date for your Wild Game Supper for next year?
First Saturday in March,
5 o'clock here at Gum Springs Baptist Church. If you're listening, you want to shoot us, if you're listening by Twitter, if you're listening by Facebook, if you'd like to send us a message, Southern Legend Outdoors, we can get you the directions to that. I believe this year Brother Ronnie Bearfield will be speaking, and so you won't want to miss that. Brother Ronnie Bearfield is the father of our co-host Kevin Bearfield on Southern Legend Outdoors, and he's a avid outdoorsman, loves to deer hunt, turkey hunt, pheasant hunt. Brother Ronnie grew up when there used to be multitudes of quail. We've talked about hunting for years, and so Brother Ronnie will be speaking at the Wild Game Supper this year at Gum Springs Baptist Church. Well, I do want to move before we go any further. I want you to talk about the fallow deer that you raise. Ray, when I first met Ray Cobb, he started talking about fallow deer. Well, I'm just a country boy from Mississippi. I may have seen them on TV, but I didn't really know what they were. And right before church one night, he said, "Hey, won't you bring Richard over and let him watch me feed the fallow deer?" And I still don't know really what he's talking about. And we pull up and make a turn and come up the hill, and there is deer running everywhere. And so, Ray, first of all, tell us what about a fallow deer. And then this is a business that he is in, and this is something that he does with his father. I know Brother Chad, anytime you got a business and you got close friends, everybody helps in everything. That's just the way we do in the South. But I know that this is something that is very costly, very time consuming, but very rewarding. And so tell us a little bit. First of all, tell us about the fallow deer, and then tell us about raising. I know right now it's a rut season for the fallow deer, which is a very important season for populating. And so tell us some things about the fallow deer.
Brother Kerry, they're from Europe. Originally, they're a close size-wise to our whitetail here in Tennessee. A buck gonna get up 180, 190 pound, but they've got a rack a lot like an elk on the front end and a moose on the back end. This is the longer they get, they palmate. They get a wide paddle horn. My dad and I have raised deer 20 years. Kind of as a novelty type deal. We've had all kind of exotic animals, emus, rheas, cavies, all kind of different sheep, pheasants and stuff, and gone to exotic animal sales, for years. And we had some fallow deer, the first deer that we bought, just like as a novelty, man. We got some deer, and we'd raised 7, 8, 10 bucks a year, and met the gentleman that I sell my deer to now, about 26 years ago, over in East Tennessee at a big shooting preserve. But the deer are hardy, no known disease to them in the United States. They're as far as having to doctor and stuff like that, we'll worm a couple times a year. And just and feed, like you said, they're just they're more or less, we raise them like cattle in enclosures. But the as far as the business side of it, it's just a door that God has opened for me personally. I was raising 7, 8 bucks a year. We had a small pen, an 8-acre pen there, and when we got more than we needed in the pen, we sold our bucks over there every year, just a hobby that made a little money. And but I had taken 13 bucks over there this year. In 2013, we had 20 something does, and that we like to run in that pen. But we'd gotten up to 35 or so, and when we get more does than we needed for the facility, we would we'd just take a load of does over there, because they would shoot does for the meat as well. And we had come back, this gentleman, Alan Wilson, at the Wilderness Shooting Preserve over in Monterey, Tennessee. Got to be good friends with him. We've hunted all over the country, turkey hunted plumb out, like you said, in New Mexico and Florida, and him and his daughters. And we were sitting there, we'd always take deer over there. When we would tuck a load, it'd be me and my daddy, my wife, my kids. We would go over there, unload the deer, and then come back to town and sit down and fellowship with his family, just, kind of like a reunion. And I told him, I said, well, Alan, I said, I'm going to have to bring a load of does over here in a few days. I said, I'm going to have to fence something else in. And instantly, his response was, I can get you the wire and the post cheaper than you can get it anywhere. So that told me he was wanting me to raise more deer. He had lost a gentleman that raised him $100 a year. That he was no longer going to be able to acquire. And the next couple of weeks, he and I talked, and got pretty serious about it. I had cattle at the time, and cattle was high. So I made a decision to sell every cow I had, which was a good time to sell. They were high. And reinvest all that money into high fence. And today we're running right at 400 head of deer, and it has turned into a business God has blessed, unreal. God has opened doors, and I talked about the plan earlier. He had a plan, as it's helped in the sense as being deacon here at the church. It freed my time up. I've been blessed that I don't punch a clock for somebody else tomorrow. Brother Chad and I, if somebody needs something or we need to go visit or something, I can go. Not bragging, but calling it a blessing.
Right.
God has put this in my lap as far as a way to make money. It, turned it into from a hobby. Right. To a business that supplies my needs.
Well, and also you not only the relationship with Brother Chad and how the outdoors not only brings you together but keeps you together, but this is something that you have some of your deer there at your home and around your home. But you're also doing this with your daddy, GW. And Brother GW is just, you just have to know him to know him. And he's got deer there at his home, and you got a fly pen there at his home. So, my dad passed away 2 years ago, and immediately my mother lives down the hill from me. And one thing I didn't want to do is get so busy in life that I forgot her, in the sense that maybe I'd go 3 or 4 days and not check on her, because life is busy. And I'm not talking about by phone, I'm talking about in person. So what I did was I moved all of my packages. Brother Chad knows I love old books, and I buy books weekly. And I have everything sent to my mother's house, which ensures that I'm going down there to get my stuff and see her. What's neat about what you and your daddy do is it's right there at his. So you're going to be over at some point during the day.
3 times a day.
I was going to say 3 or 4 times a day. And boy, that's just good for y'all, because y'all been so close and hunted all over the country. And so this is a business, but yet it is a blessing, as you said. And boy, what a joy that is. Raising fallow deer, raising pheasants, and then I get to come and stay in the cabin there at your daddy's. I get to walk outside on a cool Tennessee morning with a cup of rifle coffee and hear the pheasants flying and hear the bucks grunting and the deer running. And so it's not just a blessing to you, but it's a blessing to those that have become your friends. So I appreciate you men giving me some time. And Southern Legend Outdoors, we're going to be doing some road trips this year. With hunting, it's just inevitable. You're going to be gone. We're not going to be able to be in our studios each week. And so, as Kevin and Ken and myself are on the road, Ken will be in Montana this week, deer hunting, whitetail hunting, and elk hunting, and he's going to be there for about 8 days. And so we're looking forward to getting some report from him out there. Kevin travels a lot as he's coach there at Blue Mountain, and then during the hunting season he'll be traveling. And so we're going to try to do some remote locations. And so y'all are our first remote location for Southern Legend Outdoors. And so I appreciate y'all listen, these guys got up early, met for breakfast, and have come to give us some time with the outdoors. They're going to be in Mississippi later on in the first of next year, 2019. Going to come in and hunt. They come in and hunt deer hunt, come back and turkey hunt. We're excited to hear about y'all's stories this year and how the kid hunt in a few weeks. We're excited. We love those boys and those girls and what God's doing in that home. What is the name of that children's home?
The Good Shepherd Children's Home.
Good Shepherd, and the brother's name that
Robert Brown.
Robert Brown, and they each year have been taking these kids hunting. And last year we got to be a part of that. Eli got to come and Richard and myself, and we showed Richard's video there. Had a little van trouble. So between hunts, we had to crawl up under the van, do a little radiator work, hose work. But it's just a blessing. Before we get done with this podcast, I want to remind our listeners that when you're a boy or a young man, hunting can consume you. And you can get to the point to where all you live for is hunting. But when you get older and you begin to realize some things and what life's really about, and it's the friendship, the camaraderie, the fellowship, when you get to the place to where you'd rather take somebody than be took, I think you finally figured it out. Right. And that's what you guys do. I see that. I know that's why we become instant friends, Brother Chad, is because we're so much alike in a lot of aspects. The ministry, and then the outpouring from that ministry. And then to meet your members, such as Ray Cobb and the other men, G.W. Cobb, and just on. And we ate breakfast with James Ricketts and Cody Ricketts, his son. I could just keep naming the men in y'all's church. We have so much in common because we want to see others enjoy what we've had the privilege to enjoy. And sometimes that's kids, sometimes that's preachers, sometimes that's veterans, sometimes it's our own family. And with By His Grace Outdoors, we started that for kids, and it's just turned into so much more. And what y'all did, just started to do a few pheasants for a wild game supper, and who knows in 10 years where that may be. And so we may have to open up a branch of Clanton Cobb Farms down in Mississippi, get a fly pen going. Who knows? But we are very thankful for your heart. And Southern Legend Outdoors, you can catch us on Facebook, Twitter. You can visit us anytime. We do enjoy your feedback, and so make sure that you give us some feedback each week. And I know a lot of you are traveling, you riding down the road. A lot of you have long days of riding, and you've complimented on our podcast. There may be something you want to hear. There may be a subject that you want us to cover. We covered food plots last week with Tecumani, Mark Newell. And so you may have something you want to hear, just like the pheasants and the fallow deer. Something like that. So let us know. Give us some feedback. And until our next podcast, may God bless you.
Thank you, Brother Kerry and Brother Chad and Ray, for taking the time to do this podcast. I know these guys got up real early one morning to make this happen. And so we're very grateful here at Southern Legend Outdoors that you guys took the time to share your ministry with us, and we hope that we can help further expose what God is doing there. And we just want to pray for Brother Chad and the church there at Gum Springs, and Brother Ray and his work there with the Fallow and the Pheasant farm, and just thankful that God is using that in a special way for those guys to reach out into their community, and just thankful that they're willing to use those types of resources to be an outreach and to try to reach people for Christ. So, guys, we really appreciate it, and thank you again for taking the time to do this, and we look forward to having you guys on for a future podcast. Check us out on our website at southernlegendoutdoors.com, our Facebook page at facebook.com/Southern Legend Outdoors, also on our Instagram and Twitter page. Thanks again for listening in to this episode of the Southern Legend Outdoors Be a Legend podcast. Good night.
Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. It's your time now. Be a legend.